Well, hello and welcome to another episode in our Tribulation Soldier COMS YouTube and Facebook. My name is Pastor Stephen Birnie, and at the moment we're running through a period that will take place in the future called the 7-year Trials and Tribulation. And it's running through the 21 judgments of God with all the sort of things that are surround that. So there's 21 judgments, there's 3 sets of 7 judgments within the first, which is the 7 seals. We're on the 7 trumpets at the moment, and later there'll be the 7 vials of wrath. So these kind of teachings come from the book of Revelations, and it's my job to make a book that appears quite complicated a lot more simple to understand. And the question I keep asking throughout this teaching series that I'm doing is, are these judgments really that difficult to believe? Are they possible? Could they happen? Again, I'm going to explain it so simply, just really hoping you'll enjoy this. It's such a fascinating subject. Fascinating and terrible. I really hope you enjoy. But as always, we are YouTubers. If you don't mind liking, subscribing and hitting notifications if you wish. I've loads of videos coming this year as we populate this channel, so just hope you really enjoy. So the next judgment we're on to just now is the 2nd trumpet, and it's quite severe. I say quite severe because the real severe comes in the 7 vials of wrath, the next set of 7 that we do. And in this one, a third part of the sea becomes blood. A third of sea creatures are destroyed, and a third of shipping are destroyed. So in this video, I'm just going to put on the first layer, and later we'll go back and we'll answer a lot of those different questions. But again, at the minute, over the 7-year period, I just want to share the 21 judgments, and that gives us a foundation, a picture of what this is going to be like, and then we can add all the details to it. So in this short video, I'm just going to share the cause and the effect of something that none of us have ever seen before. This is catastrophic stuff. So in the scriptures, it begins by saying, that it's like a mountain being thrown into the sea when the 2nd trumpet is sounded. And the idea behind that, there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible. You've really got to look into the original and what it says and all those sort of things. But I just want to keep it nice and simple for these videos. And of course, when we think of that, you think, well, you can't throw a mountain into the, it's something that's impossible. But this just symbolizes the gravity, the extreme of what's just about to happen. And its effect is that a third of all sea creatures are killed, and a third of all shipping is destroyed. Now there's many parts of the scriptures that symbolize things, just to give us sort of an idea of what's actually happening. And in many ways, of course I'm going to say this, the scriptures are a masterpiece, an absolute work of art. I suppose poetic in some respects, but it's just to help us understand what's happening. And again, you ask yourself the question, could these things possibly happen? Does this world have the capacity to make something like that happen? And the answer is yes. So firstly, guys, a third of all sea creatures killed. A third of all. It says the sea becomes like blood. What it actually says in the original is that it's like a tinge. That's the colour of the sea has a tinge of blood. It looks a little bit reddy. But a third of all sea creatures killed. So we've seen so far from the previous judgments, this is why we do it in order, we take it one by one, is because before we saw there's been great earthquakes, great earthquakes upon the earth. It's also shown us that the tectonic plates, which we basically sit on, have moved. So these earthquakes were consequences, but even these earthquake consequences can lead to another set of consequences. So just a little perspective, 90% at the moment, 90% of all sea creatures are yet to be classified. 90%. And 80% of the world's ocean floor is yet to be discovered and is unmapped. 80%. So there's 80% of the ocean floor, we don't even know what it looks like. We have no idea whatsoever. Now we know that volcanoes can erupt due to earthquakes, and we also know that a huge amount of volcanic eruptions actually take place in the ocean. Not on land, but in the ocean. Hopefully you can see where I'm going with this one. So we know where the edges of the tectonic plates are, but we don't know how many volcanoes there are on the seabed. So after these great earthquakes that have never been seen before, worldwide earthquakes, is it so difficult to believe there could be multiple eruptions of volcanoes? It's not difficult to believe at all. Now this one isn't as severe as the one in the vials of wrath, because in the vials of wrath all sea life is killed. But at this stage, just a third, But even this by itself would be absolutely devastating. So many of the sea creatures that will be destroyed, again, we just look at the fact, will probably be a lot of creatures we haven't seen, we don't understand, we've just never been able to study. And that would be a vast percentage, I'd imagine, of that third. But what will see a major reduction are the fish stocks and the fishing industry itself. Like growing up, I had two uncles on the boats, I had friends that had been on the boats. So commercial fishing in our part of Scotland is really quite dear to us, and we're very proud of that. But that's like many, many other places across the globe who depend on the sea, not only just for their livelihoods, but for food consumption. And again, we're not just speaking about fish, we're talking about crabs, lobsters, prawns, some of those ones that are easy to sort of come to mind. For many regions of the world, the fishing industry is absolutely crucial to their economy. So imagine a third of all sea life killed globally, a third of all sea life. Absolute devastating, absolutely devastating. Now these verses show us of a third of shipping being destroyed too, a third of all shipping. So again, back to just a couple of statistics, just to give us a bit of an idea just now. Basically, 80% of global trade are moved on the world's oceans, 80%. You can see anything from colossal container ships to smaller cargo ships. And of course, that's not counting all the other different types of ships we have, boats, pleasure crafts. But a third of all shipping. So two of the most inexpensive routes that our goods come through the Suez Canal, which is in Egypt, and there's obviously the Panama Canal as well, which links the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. And I just want to show you the impact of one ship being disabled, one ship. And it was back in 2021, it was called the Ever Given, and it went sideways and blocked the Suez Canal. At that time, over 400 ships, just because of this, 400 ships had to wait and wait and wait. And everyday goods were really delayed. Prices got hiked up. Many people, even in our local area, were still waiting for things to come in because they were on back order. And that was as far reaching as here, way up in our little corner of Scotland. And the effect could be felt. That was one container ship. One container ship for a short period of time, stopping all this traffic. What would be the main theory as to how a third of the world's shipping could be destroyed? Well, we know that earthquakes cause tsunamis, we know that, but volcanoes can also cause tsunamis as well. We know that the earthquakes in the tribulation period are worldwide, they're global, they are huge. But let's take a single volcano, just a single volcano erupting in subsea. And the one I'll take us from 2022, called the Tonga volcanic eruption. The Tonga volcanic eruption. And statistics from that one volcano alone are just absolutely mind-boggling. To begin with, it was the largest explosion ever recorded. Hundreds more times more powerful than a nuclear weapon. And even though it happened in the South Pacific Ocean, the noise could be heard 500 miles away. It was also felt in even places like Japan and even Alaska. The plume reached 36 miles high, 36 miles. And the explosion on the ocean surface was 2 kilometers wide. We'll get back to that one a little later though. So you can imagine that was just one volcano. Imagine if there's multiple volcanoes erupting all over the world. It's just mind-boggling when you really break it down. You take one example and then you put that into multiple. And you can see that these things are very possible. The world does have a capability of being able to even destroy itself. We haven't went into detail about some volcanoes and the fallout from that, the ash, planes being grounded, just from one volcanic eruption. So now when we look at it, and again we say, is it possible? The answer is an absolute yes. A third of sea life could get killed, and a third of all shipping could easily be destroyed. But even at this point in the tribulation, the world will go on. We've still got a way to go when we see all sea life killed and all shipping destroyed. We've still got a way to go. At the moment, this is what I meant in previous teachings as God stepping up the intensity stepping up. And again, we'll come back to this subject. You know, there's so much to learn, you know, and again, there's so much information available to us today on the internet. You know, there's so much there if you want to look into it. But if you are following this season, I just want to encourage you just to try and focus on one at a time, because there's so many questions that come out. You know, just one at a time, and we'll just keep layering it up. I'll keep going and going and going. But this is the simplest way to learn it, and the simplest way to really understand it and let it impact you. So enough for now. That was loads. That was absolutely loads. And I'm looking forward to coming back to just opening this subject up even more and later. But I just want to follow the 21 judgments. We move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. The picture will build. But for now, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to keep going and going and going with these end times teachings. Those questions you might have just now, I will answer them. I've taught this stuff for many years publicly and had to answer many questions and all these sorts of different things, you know. So don't worry, I know the type of questions that come up, and I'll answer them all. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and God bless.